Remarkable Olympian in any sport.
One gold medalist.
Blazing new frontier for the next generation.
Beijing, August 16, 2008. The water cube hums with tension. The 100-meter butterfly final. Michael Phelps versus Milorad Čavić. 7 golds behind him, 1 race left to make history. The start explodes into foam and chaos. By the final turn, Čavić leads by half a body length. The world gasps. For once, Phelps looks mortal. Then, in the last 10 meters, something impossible happens. His stroke rate accelerates beyond rhythm, beyond reason. He skips the final glide, a decision every coach warns against, and hammers one last half stroke. Fingertips strike the wall, the scoreboard freezes. Silence. Then, Phelps, first place by 0.01 seconds, 8 goals. A new standard for human perfection. He wasn't born to swim, he was built for it. But the real question is how a man designed for water nearly drowned in perfection itself.
I had a lot of ups and downs. I went through a lot of tough times.
To understand that, we have to start where control first found him, in the shallow end of a Baltimore pool. Before he was a symbol of perfection, he was a restless kid from Baltimore, impatient, distracted, unable to sit still. Diagnosed with ADHD at 9, he found the world too loud, too scattered. But in the water, everything slowed down. The pool muted the noise, filtered the chaos. Stroke after stroke, the rhythm gave him something school couldn't: focus. His mother, Debbie, enrolled him in swimming lessons not to shape a champion, but to give her son peace. Yet coaches noticed something else: a natural glide, an unusual feel for water, as if he understood it intuitively. By 11, he met Bob Bowman, a coach as intense as the boy himself. Bowman saw raw energy that could either burn out or become legendary. He chose the latter.
Coach, your job is to cover every eventuality that you can conceive of, and there'll still be some. So they have to be focused on what they're doing, but they also have to be able to control their environment.
In a sport measured in hundredths of a second, Phelps learned early that control mattered more than power. The pool became his classroom, the stopwatch his language. And while other kids went home after practice, he'd swim extra laps, not because someone told him to, but because stopping never felt right. When Phelps began working with Bowman, the goal wasn't to train harder, it was to train smarter. Bowman believed that if you could measure it, you could improve it. Heart rate, stroke count, oxygen levels, lactate tolerance. Every number had a target. By his teens, Phelps was logging more meters than any swimmer on Earth, up to 80,000 a week, morning sessions before sunrise, evening sessions long after others had gone home. While most athletes took a day off to recover, Phelps trained 365 days a year. Missing one meant falling 2 behind. Their relationship was demanding, but built on trust. Bowman engineered the plan, Phelps executed it. Together they shaped a routine so precise it bordered on obsession. The smell of chlorine, the echo of his own breath, that was his world. He trained his body like a machine, but his mind like a metronome, teaching it to find calm inside chaos. In that repetition, something rare happened. The system stopped being about swimming faster and became about controlling the uncontrollable. Fatigue, nerves, failure, even time itself. Michael Phelps didn't just dominate swimming, he redefined what an elite human body could look like in water. At one point, 9'3" meters tall with a wingspan 10 centimeters longer than his height, his body acted like a lever system built for propulsion. His long torso and short legs reduced drag, while double-jointed ankles let his feet flex like fins. Tests later showed a lung capacity near 12 liters, twice the average. But it wasn't just anatomy. His muscles cleared lactic acid unusually fast, letting him sustain speed. Add years of interval work and altitude adaptation, and you get something beyond endurance: efficiency. Sports scientists called him a biomechanical outlier. Bowman called him a perfect storm of talent and training. Motion analysis confirmed it. His head lower in the water, his kick flatter, his turns nearly frictionless. The secret wasn't physics alone, It was how Phelps paired genetic luck with obsessive mastery. He once said his goal wasn't to swim faster, but to make fewer mistakes. In that pursuit, he became less a competitor than an experiment in precision. Before Athens, Phelps had already brushed the edge of greatness. At 15, he became the youngest American male swimmer in almost 70 years to compete in the Olympics, finishing 5th in Sydney, 2000. The disappointment lit something. Within a year, he broke the world record in the 200-meter butterfly, then another and another. Between 2001 and 2003, he collected 5 world titles and set 5 world records. What began as a biological advantage had become a global warning. Perfection was no longer a theory, it was coming. By the time he arrived in Athens, Michael Phelps was 19, but already swimming like a veteran. 5 individual events, 3 relays, 48 races in 8 days. For most, that schedule would mean collapse. For Phelps, it was controlled chaos. The first gold came in the 400 IM, a world record and a declaration. Then came the butterfly, freestyle, and backstroke events, each executed with surgical precision. He finished with 6 golds and 2 bronzes, the youngest swimmer ever to do so. What impressed most wasn't the medals, but the manner. He never celebrated between races, never broke routine. That calm wasn't cold, it was trained. Athens proved Phelps wasn't just talented, he was scalable. And while the world called him a prodigy, Bowman was already drawing a new blueprint, a 4-year plan to turn consistency into history. Between Athens and Beijing, Phelps disappeared into the machine he'd built. The 2005 and 2007 World Championships became his laboratories. 7 golds, 5 world records, and proof that 8 Olympic titles might be possible. Training evolved into data, altitude camps, underwater cameras, lactate tracking. Outside the pool, fame exploded. Inside, life stayed small. Early alarms, isolation, repetition. 4 years compressed into one long rehearsal for perfection. The Beijing Olympics weren't about winning, they were about history. 8 races, 8 chances. In the 200 freestyle, he broke his own world record by nearly a second. In the 200 butterfly, his goggles filled with water halfway through. He finished blind, still setting a record. Jason Lezak's final leg in the 4x100 relay kept the dream alive. And then the 100 butterfly, won by 0.01 seconds. When the final race ended, he had 8 goals, 7 world records, and a moment that redefined possibility. But even as he stood on the podium, the question lingered. What happens when you finally reach perfection? When the lights faded after Beijing, Phelps was 23 and had nothing left to prove. But that was the problem. For the first time, there was no target, no stopwatch, no plan waiting the next morning. The structure that had kept him focused vanished, and silence replaced the roar. Publicly, he was the golden boy. Privately, he was unraveling. He stopped training. Headlines shifted from medals to mistakes. The DUI, the photo, the fallout. He later said he didn't want to live.
I got to that point where, for me, it's been my all-time low, and I didn't want to be alive.
For the first time, winning had given him nothing to hold on to. Years of pressure and repetition had built a life so narrow that anything outside success felt meaningless. The man who mastered every fraction of a second couldn't manage his own days. Eventually, he sought help, therapy, rehabilitation, reflection. He began speaking openly about mental health, about how chasing greatness without balance almost destroyed him. It was the hardest race of his life, one that didn't end at the wall, but when he finally learned to stop swimming. When Phelps returned for London 2012, he wasn't chasing ghosts, he was chasing himself. The machine still worked, but the hunger had changed. Older, slower, more aware, he still won 4 golds and 2 silvers, then retired. But retirement didn't last. Without competition, emptiness crept back in. He rebuilt from the inside. Therapy, family, perspective. Training again, but differently. Not to prove, but to find peace. By Rio 2016, he smiled more. He carried the American flag at the opening ceremony. When he raced, it wasn't to erase mistakes, but to honor them. 5 golds, 1 silver, and this time a sense of completion. He didn't retire from exhaustion, he retired fulfilled. Proof that mastery isn't about never falling apart, but about knowing how to rebuild when you do. In the record books, Michael Phelps will always be the greatest Olympian. 28 medals, 23 gold. But numbers can't explain what those years in the pool meant. His story isn't just about dominance, it's about design, discipline, and the cost of reaching the edge of human potential. He showed the world that greatness can be engineered through biology, through method, through relentless consistency. Yet he also showed that no design is perfect. Even the most precise system needs something fragile inside, purpose. Long after his last race, Phelps turned that fragility into strength. He became an advocate for mental health, teaching that real strength isn't the absence of struggle, but the courage to face it. In a sport that demands silence, he used his voice to change how athletes see themselves. In the end, Michael Phelps didn't just swim faster than anyone before him. He built a life that revealed what lies beyond perfection, the understanding that being human is the hardest and most meaningful feat of all. This is Stride Law, Human Feats, stories of people who've stretched the limits of what we thought was possible. If you want to keep exploring the moments that define human potential, subscribe, like, and share. It helps the channel grow and keeps these stories alive.